the wisdom of authenticity, and I'm joined today by Fiona Marie, Kat Von Note, Jojo Tonnaer, and Jill Sawchuk. And it's so awesome to have you all here. I'd love to know, just to get the conversation started, Fiona, what does the wisdom of authenticity mean to you?
Mm. I think for me, it's about who you were before the world told you who you shouldn't be, and delayering yourself from all the parts of you that abandon yourself for love. And love doesn't have to, in my view, just lend to love itself, like a relationship, intimacy, but that's how you show up in business, in friendships, in any form of relationship. And do you have the courage to actually unbecome all of that pain and trauma that disassociated or disconnected you from your true self in order to actually become who you are and express your true essence in a world that is full of suffering? So I'll keep it simple at that because I could probably delve deep into that, but that's what that means for me.
Wow, yeah, that's powerful. I feel that Kat's chapter and contribution really dove into that to a degree. Do you feel that, Kat?
I do. In fact, I resonated very much with what you said, Fiona.
Mm.
Um, for me, I like to say to people that the game is between you and you, that the you that you are when you came into this place um, has a certain resonance. And when you really understand what authenticity is to me, what I really understand is every choice I make has uh, that flavor of self in it. And if I move towards that same frequency, each choice I make becomes a clear path between me and where I'm going. So that the idea of people outside myself have far less control over my choices. So that's what I would add to it in a simple way. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like the poem that you shared that spoke into that. And Fiona's chapter was very much like a poem. So there's a lot of parallels between both of your writings, which is really cool. And do you feel like I know that there was a lot of adversity that went through in the writing process and bringing this book to the surface. Um, Jojo, how was that for you? Because I know that you so much had sort of happened in your world.
Yeah.
Did that really reveal more about the wisdom of authenticity for you?
Oh, absolutely. For me, authenticity has very much been about having the courage to drive my own bus, and being really committed to that and not allowing myself to be pulled off track. And if I am, to learn to also, interact with compassion, because you try to find this pendulum. First you start to assert who you are and you feel sometimes ruthless because you go to one end where you think, this, I want to focus on this. And then you go to this place where you observe how people react and you're more compassionate, and but be true to yourself. And then there's a whole lot of guilt. And I re-experienced, in a sense, my journey through what happened with the floods. And I understand very much now that my experience was really about, because when you invited us all into this beautiful project, I think it was so heartfelt for so many people. It was something that was already very dear to our heart. And so what then happens is you start to focus on that, and that powerful intention starts to go, well, hang on, you want to be absolutely authentic? Well, suck on this. It's almost like this, you calling it in, you're embracing it, your heart's opening up to your own wisdom and grounding that. And so for me it was really like, well, hang on, you're not really happy where you live, and this is not really working for you. And it was a really quick realignment that was kind of earth shattering, like being stuck on your property and having to be told off it and all this sort of stuff, and telling you, being told you have to evacuate. It was like, you are moving whether you like it or not, lady, because this is not where you're meant to be, and where you're meant to be writing this. So, and then you get to a stage where I had to surrender to God. I had to surrender to whatever was going to happen, because I lost all control. And it was in that process of surrender that things started to fall together. And I realized now that I had a lot of resistance, because I loved it, Kat, when you said something about, yeah, bring it on, this alignment. I wish I'd had that energy that you had. I didn't have that energy. I was like, what is happening? I was in shock. I was frozen in shock. And it took me a while, but I loved it when you said that, because now I understand that. And did I have to go through it again, I would be, yelling at the rain, saying, bring it on, fresh out. I'm ready to leave anyway, so I'm ready for the realignment. Like, I don't care about the drama of it. Bring it. But it was very intense, and I was guided to pull some cards before we started for all of us, and I was mind blown. I've never known this deck, that we used this deck before. But the first card I pulled was giving birth. The second one was healing the past. It's so aligned. Savoring pleasure. This was a big one, I think, for probably a lot of us who resonate with this, that when you are working towards something, that you can absolutely enjoy every moment instead of focusing on the outcome, just savoring what presents for you right there and then. And that's how you get, you work with authenticity, trusting your intuition, embracing the future, and dwelling in truth.
Wow, you pulled 6 cards.
I pulled 6.
That's
I pulled the
impressive.
past,
Okay.
the present, and the future. So the
Oh,
future
nice.
is embracing the future and dwelling in truth. And I was just like, wow, this pretty much sums it up,
Yeah,
and
it certainly does. And it's been an amazing journey and incredible. And I just really appreciate the courage in you stepping up and going through it anyway. And it was so worth it. And I love what Fiona was saying before about that it was just divine timing with everything that sort of transpired. And
I
I know that
agree.
Pat speaks a lot into that about in her chapter. And
Yeah.
Jill actually just came back from a retreat, and so she's had a lot going on as well in her world, and she talks about setting boundaries. I remember, Jill, you talked about setting boundaries in your chapter, and really doing everything you can to make sure that they're honored, and that you have your set of values, core values, and anything outside of those values is not really in alignment with your life now. And I really appreciate I guess that protection of your sovereignty, and just declaring your sovereignty. Would you like to speak into that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I loved everything that y'all have said and really resonated with it. And Jojo, listening to your story about the flood, I mean, that's part of what I wrote too, John, right? That um, life for me has always been guided by, yeah, that feeling of knowing who I am or what I want. And when I didn't listen, crazy shit always happened, to like, look, lady, follow your truth. And yeah, I think same, Kat, what you said about like us against ourselves, you against you. I think that's true. And for me too, like this idea about living authentically or setting boundaries, if you really want me to speak specifically to that, I think it is living authentically is this decision to honor what we know, like, and I love the cards that you pulled, Jojo, this like listening to our intuition and healing our past and some association with living authentically and exploring our definition or relationship to what love is, and just choosing to love ourselves. And yeah, I mean, this topic is so huge. And like John said, I've been on retreat. I was actually away for the last month. So I just quickly read a few of these chapters, and I'm being totally honest, I haven't read it all and I can't freaking wait because from what I did read, I do see the thread that seems to be common in the chapters that I read with mine, which is just, yeah, that courage, that bravery to listen to ourselves versus, I don't know, maybe what we were taught. And boundaries, I think, is something I didn't know when I was growing up. So I think that's like a whole big conversation. But yeah, I just started to learn that in my 40s, and it definitely was a part of letting myself be me instead of pleasing others.
Mm, yeah, there's a lot of juiciness in that. Can you relate to what Jill's saying, Fiona?
I can. So what comes up for me when we discuss intuition, because I do really resonate with intuition being a huge part of embodying your authenticity. I feel because of how reality is set up, we have to go on a journey as women and men too to discern what's intuition versus trauma. And I love to be able to always link spirituality with embodiment and physical embodiment because we can walk a tricky line between, bypassing our emotions and our experiences and for me it's not always about actually enjoying the journey. And I think that's where we've got to enjoy the journey. And I'm like, some of my greatest challenges on the journey of being authentic has been through experiencing such pain. And that pain has really illuminated parts of myself that when I look back now, I'm so in deep honor and love and gratitude for going through those experiences. So I relate a lot to Jill when she says, following intuition and listening to that higher power, coupled by having tools where we can navigate and strengthen our capacity to listen to that intuition so the trauma and attachment side of us doesn't take over and stray us off the path, which in turn I feel is a part of the journey of being authentic because you have to stray off in order to know what the path is through contrast. So that's sort of what comes up for me through Jill's beautiful sharing of how do we strengthen our capacity to listen to our intuition when our attachment wounds or triggers or these parts of ourselves where we have abandoned our truth come into play and coming back into our center again.
Do you feel it's helpful to know like what your values are? Like, oh, I stand for this. This is important for me. I need to have this in my reality. This is what lights me up. Does that make it easier to then navigate through like abandonment wound or trauma wound, etc., etc.?
100%. I feel values are incredible and are just a piece of the puzzle. I think a lot of us know that our values drive all of our decisions, and sometimes people don't know whether they're actually unconsciously valuing something that's incongruent to where they're driving their future towards. So I think for me, it was imperative to know who do I want to be? What do I want to value? What's important to me? And having that, yes, absolutely, as my North Star as I navigate the human experience. So I feel like that can be, I mean, we can talk so much into value systems, but to directly answer your question, I think it's one of the most non-negotiable things to explore is what's important to me because we get conditioned into a life where we get led out of our truth. Which is, as a child, you're intuitively moving through life, and a parent tells you not to do something that feels right for you. And so that's where a disconnection can happen. So us remembering what is true to us can bring us back into navigating our true self through all the conditioning of life. So I think to land the plane it is an imperative part of the process. It has been for me, and it's definitely an incredible tool that people can embody to ensure that the path they're navigating is theirs and not someone else's.
That's a powerful share, and yeah, awesome. Really, really powerful stuff. And yeah, because it's be so easy to get confused between the two, right? That if you
Mm,
don't really not clear on your North Star and what you value and what's important to you, then really are you living you could be living your parents' lives. And um,
yeah.
I certainly yeah, have done that multiple times uh,
Yeah.
over and over again. It took me a little while. I'm a thorough learner as yeah. It's
I think it's a working relationship. I think that a lot of people want this black and white result in life, but life is very secular and very spiral-like in its nature. So I think it's a constant relationship to yourself and life through these experiences. So I don't think we're always going to get it right and it's always going to be 100%. I think that's the beauty of life is when we can go through these contraction and expansion processes that strengthen who we really are, but we're not always going to be in alignment, and that's the part of life itself. And I know that a lot of people, I know certainly my journey was constantly going into someone else's lane because I didn't feel strong enough in my sense of self to listen to myself without getting pulled into someone who, as an example, had a stronger energy or stronger conviction or potentially even stronger established leadership. So I was constantly getting dragged out of my lane into the certainty of someone else's rather than building that certainty within myself. So, and not everyone experiences that. That was just definitely my experience as a young woman and woman, was how do I strengthen my capacity to stay in my own lane so I don't get swayed by things outside of myself that look great, but my soul's like, this isn't for me. This doesn't suit me. It suits them, but why am I having challenges with this and resisting this when they're telling me it's the best pathway to take, but my soul's like, but it's not your pathway. Right.
it's not authentic to you.
Mm,
I
Yeah.
think Fiona makes a good point there, though. Like, if and encouraging if anybody's listening to follow that path, that there will be ups and downs, right? I think that's important to accept. And when you were talking, Fiona, also occurred to me like what a great time to encourage people to live authentically because as you say, getting pulled into a different lane, I just couldn't help but think, all of the media that we watch and how it so deeply influences us. And I think it would be so nice to invite more and more people into living from what they kind of know, which is inside, versus like looking out for those answers from somebody else.
mm. I love that you spoke into that because media, without going into that topic and considering what's happening globally right now, but media is a big distraction and it's used to siphon attention and perception and control people. And more than ever, is it really important for people to establish a deep connection with themselves, their value systems, and not get pulled into other people's chaos, because that's what feeds these beasts and these systems that are deeply disconnecting for many people. But I think for the purpose of this discussion, I'm not going to add any more because I think get very passionate about what's
I would
going
very much like to add to that. So
on.
I'm a child from the 60s. I got to see what it was like in the 60s. I got to experience it. And because my particular unique situation was I was left by myself to be in reality without any true mentors. And I got to see the development of the social media, but I also got to experience it from back when social was just socializing. And my whole experience wasn't learning from other people telling me what to think. I had to figure it out on my own. And that's a really powerful place. And that's what you're alluding to when you say, get out from underneath everybody else's opinion. And I go back to what I was saying before, where the game is between you and you. And it's like every thought that goes into your head is for a fact something that you won't be able to remove. It's just a fact. It's like a little grain of sand. And with each and every single little grain of sand you add to it, if it's not yours, now you have to regurgitate it out or you have to assimilate it in. And that's just a fact. So you have to figure out what is you and what does truth feel like to you. So let's slow it down for just a second, if you don't mind me philosophizing. This is my own personal experience and me philosophizing. So what I found to be true is we have senses. We have the sense of touch and the sense of feel, and sense of hearing, but we have these things on the inside. These are our divining rods. What does truth feel like to us? And you can slow life way down and experience truth And all you have to do is do it like a little grain of sand. That's my truth. So when you say I get pulled out and someone has that influence on me, well, that just shows you where you don't have enough substance within yourself that says this is who I am. This is my frequency. This is my original frequency, who I am as I stand like a water droplet in the ocean waves pulling us left and right, right? So what we do then is we go, this is our truth. I've got this one grain of sand truth. Then you build on that. Each one, what does truth feel like for you? That way, just to be really clear about things, that way, when the world comes in, it's not so much that they pulled you away, they showed you in a mirror what is a little gaping hole for you. So everything becomes good. It's what Jojo was saying. Everything becomes good because it's like, I am so grateful for that opportunity that my world blew up because I recognize where I'm missing some substance for myself. And I get to recognize what truth feels like for me in that. And I get to just deflate like a flan and just go poof, down to nothing until I figure out how to build. And I build step by step. It's not so much that the world has information to give me. I have all the answers if I know how to go find truth, if I know how to find my way. And that's the source of my authenticity. How do I find truth? And I'm very grateful that I didn't have a lot of mentors because I was forced into how do I find truth? And that's pretty much my story.
Yeah, that's cool. I know you went through quite a lot as well in that journey, and to do it in the 60s and 70s is it's kind of cool. And now that you're, teaching and helping other people, and I feel like I just had so much mud flung on me from a young age, and it was like, you need to just wash this mud off, and learn to accept that mud. That was for me in my journey, and I was emotionally, physically, and sexually abused. I thought I just locked that away and built a brick wall around those aspects of myself, never to be looked at because it was just too painful and it had no value. And so I built a successful seven-figure business, and thought that's what I need, and had a penthouse that had all the outside trappings, cars, and an apartment, and in the eastern suburbs of Sydney and Double Bay. And this is in the late 90s, and I just developed a drug addiction, and lost a lot, and then rebuilding from there. And I found it so challenging, and I lost all my confidence. It took me about 5 years to rebuild. And so I can really relate to what you're talking about there. And I guess for me, my set point was just the values that my parents had unconsciously sort of fed to me during that 0 to 7 period. And it was just my go-to. And I found it incredibly, now looking back in reflection, very powerful and humbling. And I feel it was Jojo saying before, was like surrendering to God because I just didn't have any control. And I sort of came to that point where it's like, I just surrender because, the way that I thought was meant to be, it isn't the way. And I just learnt to love those aspects of myself, that wounded child. And a lot of times when I'm going through the creative process, is re-nurturing that little Johnny. It's okay, little Johnny, if we just sit down and write for half an hour, then we can go and get a chocolate or go for a walk or go down to the beach. And so a big part of my journey in the creative process I've been publishing this series, and I wrote in every single book, like the first 41 books in the series. And I had to take myself through that journey of like reparenting, that love and support that I didn't really receive growing up. Well, not to the level that I kind of needed to really believe in myself and to, put these messages out into the world. Can anyone else relate to that? Like Jojo, did you have to
Oh,
reparent yourself through the?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And I also love that when I'm talking about the inner child, and like Kat was talking about the emotions, because there is no authenticity without that. There is no authenticity without true compassion for yourself and feeling all the feels, because for so many people it's a mental construct. It's something that they think they can achieve through learning or books, but it's such a deeply personal journey. For a lot of people, it requires grounding, stronger grounding, like for me, for example, to grow this container to really support that inner growth and to be able to become successful. And because a lot of it, you know, our nervous system, if it's not, hasn't had the support and the love and care, it's not strong enough to sustain this sort of this upward trajectory of growth unless we really ground and expand and find this compassion in our heart to be gentle and to talk to the inner child. And so, you know what, today it's enough. I've had enough. And like you said, John, and think of, you know, like nurture the inner child. And I actually, when I started my deep healing, I found a picture of myself that really spoke to me, because I was maybe about 3 and I had these big eyes, and I can see the frozen fear in my little face. And I slept with that picture in my bed. And I literally just put like little Jojo in my heart, and I said, you know what, you're safe now, and I will love you and I will stand by you no matter what happens. And it was such a powerful shift, because we haven't learned to be compassionate towards ourselves. But if we feel like we're carrying this little girl and we can connect with our own heart and our tenderness and develop that compassion, we start to really respect our boundaries. And I love that boundaries came up here as well, because that's a huge part of it. But it really starts with having the courage to open your heart to yourself and saying, I'm okay with whatever I'm going to find in there. There's going to be, of course, there's going to be loneliness, there's going to be sadness, there's going to be some despair, and there's also going to be a mean person or a disconnected person or an angry person or a person full of rage. And I can hold all of that in my heart and love it as much as I can. And I think that's so essential. And I was able to do that with connecting to my little girl. And just, you know, and this was when my son was a baby. So I felt like I was raising 2 kids. I was raising my little boy and I was raising myself, my little girl. And the things that I got to do for him, sometimes I had this real pain in my heart of like, no one ever did that for me. But I made this decision when I got pregnant that I'm going to be the best mom I can possibly be. But I didn't realize it also meant that I was going to be the best mom for me that I could possibly be. And I mothered myself. So yeah, and grew up with my son, my son into like the competent woman that I am now, that has got the courage to set boundaries, and very naturally often, like no comes really naturally to me. It's fantastic. And yeah, I'm surprised at how difficult, like I look back and how I just struggle. Like I would lay in bed thinking I should have said this, or why did I agree to this project? I can't, you know, or why did I go along with that, or that person, you know, did betrayed me and I didn't say anything, and all this sort of stuff. You make things so complex in your life. You really complicate things for yourself. And when you decide, no, I'm actually going to speak my truth calmly and serenely, it's so therapeutic. It's because it resonates with your own heart. And every time you do that, like you come home and you go, hey, I feel good. I feel like this is the right thing for me to do. So yeah, I love that we're going really deep here, because it's such an incredible birthing process. It's emotional, it's messy, it's beautiful. I've worked with clients that literally said to me that they, for the first time in their life, they felt really connected to spontaneous joy. Others, you know, are able to finally connect to their deep longing, because our deep longing is our soul speaking to us. And often we need to excavate the true self to really connect with our heartfelt deep longing, our soul speak, in order to manifest that for ourselves. And the path becomes clearer and clearer, and more narrow as well, I must say. More narrow, because there's a lot of things you go, okay, you know, I'm going to actually not do this anymore, and I only need half a glass of wine. And you just learn these boundaries of what works for you, and has you committed to the path of your own divine growth and empowerment. And it's a wonderful path. It's
so awesome. I love that, how it gets narrow in that this is your lane. You realize your lane and you live into it.
yes.
It's beautiful. And I feel also, Kat, you've done a lot of mothering, because relating what you were saying, Jojo, you're mothering yourself and your son simultaneously. And I feel that Kat's done a bit of that as well on some level, because she runs a house where people just come and stay, and she mothers them and she supports them through the abandonment.
Actually,
Yeah. So I'll let you speak to
actually,
that, Kat.
I
Yeah.
have a thing on my wall that says sovereignty. I will not mother you.
All right. Okay. Okay. Wow.
But here's the thing, the difference, that because I did what
Okay.
JoJo did. I went through that entire process not having anyone, not having, I mean, it's really interesting to say, to give a little bit of background. So I was deep in LA, and my mom would lock me out of the house, and I was left in a very rural area, but was also a very violent area. So guns in my face, life threatening, and it was not a pleasant environment. So I definitely was not mothered. And I remember walking down the hallway after I'd had 4 kids of my own and recognizing, oh my goodness, I have to be my own mother. And there is something to be said for it. And coming out of that experience, so many, 30 years later, 35 years later, I run Wild Wolf Inn, and I let people come in because I hate living alone, and I've got 5 bedrooms, so I just bring people in, and we coexist. And I do notice that everybody, it doesn't matter if they're conscious or unconscious about this path, are waking up to themselves, because as a collective, just we're all on a planet flying behind a star, surrounded by other planets. That's our reality. We forget that when we go to the grocery store and pay our bills. And these people come in, and they recognize the depth of what it means to be human by being in the environment, because the exchange becomes different. Where so often people will think that they are separate. It's a thing, but in actuality, we're very entangled with one another. We're always in relationship with one another, and mostly we're in relationship with ourselves. We can't help it. And so this mothering that we do from the inside out, it's the feminine quality that we all have, that wonderful balance of feminine and masculine, the inner and the outer, the exchange of information. And we can have that exchange of information with our higher selves as well. And so it often will look like exchange of information into our higher selves, to our center, out in exchange with the world, and back. And both of those are mirrors. And we find ourselves in the center part of that exchange, interacting with other people. And it's like kindergarten all over again. People get it. And that's the reason why, if they collapse emotionally into something that is a hidden aspect of themselves, and they're facing a mirror that scares them, like what John was saying, that younger child who went through trauma, what happens to the emotions is they just get depressed right down, and the emotions no longer are connecting. But the minute you're stuck with that mirror and you get a little flavor of it, a little scratch of it, you collapse. But what you're actually really doing is opening. So I don't mother them. I hold accountable space, which means I trust you. I trust that you're enough. And I hope that when people read this book, they find that flavor in themselves, that say, I am enough. I'm enough. I have everything I possibly could want or need in order to look at the scariest mirrors that I had experienced between 0 and today, the moment that of my conception and the day that I'm reading this book.
Nice. Okay, that's very clear and concise, and yeah, very intentional about your space, and what it's about and who's it for. And I like that trust aspect of it. I feel trust and authenticity go hand in hand, and along with intuition as well. Jill, are you able to speak into that? I know you raise 2 children, and you run retreats, and you run yoga studio, and have done so in Mexico and in Canada. Um, is that What's your
Yeah.
yeah, that
y-
dynamic?
Yeah, I'm listening to you all and just loving this conversation. And just acknowledge all of you for your courage and bravery and in writing your chapters. And John, like, just speaking your truth again about, your own traumas and yeah, and this piece too, Kat, that you were saying, and maybe others as well, around healing or trauma and this ability to stay with that feeling or discomfort. When I was listening to that conversation, I also thought, yeah, that's that moment, right, that we all face if we're going to look at our stuff and our our past and have some healing around it, that we're going to face this moment of discomfort or shame or, like, which is really hard to stay. And on that note, I think if somebody's reading the book or listening to this interview and wonders if they have the strength or the courage or what steps they could take, that's definitely where my passion lies, is in giving people those tools. And you mentioned it too, Kat, like this ability to turn within and feel this thing inside, a physical thing. I think you mentioned that too, Fiona, this ability to connect to the body, I think is so imperative. And I think, looking at all of you and listening to you speak openly about these things that often carry shame, like abuse or addiction, and these things that happen in our families, that it does give others, as you speak that, or as we speak it, or as we write this, and the fear around like sharing our stories is definitely a part of it. But it is also so liberating for other people to hear it. And I think I also hear that tone of this kind of collective awakening. And I think probably all of us are participating in that. And if you're listening to this interview or you do end up reading the book, I would just say, yeah, that it is possible and it is liberating as much as it is. We do face these discomforts or truth or shame and this need to heal, but these ancient teachings like yoga, and I'm sure, even like your cards that you pulled, Jojo, and I bet, Kat, you were speaking, or this space you've created, or Fiona, I don't know exactly what you do, but I'm sure all of us are, having been through it, providing tools, and there's so many people out there doing the same thing. So yeah, I would just encourage anybody to keep on it. And I think collectively, I invite all of us into this new time where we're listening to something inside of us other than outside of us. And yeah, just thank you, John, for giving us the opportunity to share our stories. And again, I super commend all of you who wrote your stories, because yeah, it is scary as shit now to share your truth and um, all those things that make you go kind of like, oh, that's uncomfortable.
So well said. And yeah, you covered so many bases, and what basically the collective we've been expressing today. And yeah, it's extraordinary. And the book is a deep dive into all those elements. And Fiona, you talked about in your chapter about that reconnection with love, that first love, and seeing your brother and having that just unconditional acceptance and love for him.
Mm.
How was that journey?
So the angle of what I wrote was, in a way, I wanted to take people through a felt experience. I think many people intellectualize their experiences and it's very mind driven, and I really want to descend people into feelings and association into love itself. And the angle of this book was not about the dynamics with your parents of attachment theory and safety and love, but it was around, rather than who formed love for us, it was about when was the first time I genuinely felt love. Not received it from a parental source, but actually felt the emotion of love for the very first time. And when I wrote this, it just came through a stream because I was navigating my own attachment issues at the time in my relationship. And why was I constantly abandoning myself for love, of like all these challenges I ever faced in relationship. And it was a big process for me to look at all these parts of myself where I did abandon myself for love. And that time when that book came through, it was just like it was literally 8 hours or less. It just came through like a channel, like a source that came through when I actually closed that energy charge where I sought love outside of myself. And it linked me back to when I first received the feeling of love for the first time, which was when my brother was born. And my brother was my best friend growing up. And it was also the recognition of when I lost the feeling of that love for the first time. And in that breakage of not feeling that anymore, that's when I began the journey at that point of seeking love outside of myself through the attention or desire to be even just friends with a male and the challenges I faced with that. So this book was really about taking myself back to the first time I ever felt love and healing that part of me that disconnected from my true self in order to re-experience that feeling again with someone close to me.
Super cool. Yeah, amazing. And I'm really looking forward to your brother reading that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Do you know what was funny when Jill said,
yeah.
when you were talking about your process of, or when you were speaking into, yeah, when you publish something and it's gonna your own creativity is going to be visible for someone else to receive. I know definitely for me, I've had a journey with it and I haven't showed my brother it yet. Like I've told him about it, but for me, it was such a deeply intimate process that at the time when I shared with him, I've written something for you about our relationship because we were best friends, and through time that relationship changed and morphed as we became adults ourselves and sought friendship outside of that original family system. But I actually went on a journey myself of when this book got published and we had a couple of calls, I think, and I went into full-blown fucking avoidance, excuse my French, because I was like, wow, this is taking my work to a whole new level of visibility and exposure. And this passage for me was actually such a deeply vulnerable and felt experience. And to have that to be received by people who I know will either accept it or reject it, because that's a part of life, was a deeply uncomfortable process. And when I shared it with him at the time, he said, wow, like he had stuff come up with it of, wow, am I good enough basically to be written about, was sort of the vulnerabilities of his experience. And I knew in that point when I shared part of the passage with him was he commented, yeah, we really used to be best friends, didn't we? And it was like this level of intimacy I hadn't experienced with my brother for such a long time that it was another way of us being able to bridge that gap between forming that level of intimacy we had as a child. And I don't mean, intimacy is like closeness, is safety, is our ability to laugh and play and have fun. And yeah, to know that him receiving part of what I wrote softened him into his true self, into how he felt about our relationship growing up too, that I actually experienced a lot of grief with when we went our sort of separate ways for a period of time, because he was my safety source in my environment growing up. We grew up in quite a volatile environment, and so he was my like best friend that I could take everywhere with me, and we could take each other everywhere and know that we were safe in the world. So it was a deeply vulnerable process for me to not only write the book, to share it with him, but then have other people be exposed to the matters of my own heart. So it was definitely has been a big process for me too. So I really resonated to you when you actually spoke into that, because I did want to share in our group chat, hey, does anyone else have shit come up through this process? Because I might most certainly have some shit coming up right now, and this is quite uncomfortable. And even this call, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll go to tomorrow's call and not actually show up today. And I'm like, no, 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 like it's not gonna happen. Lean the fuck in is like a big part of what I speak into, is just like lean the fuck in and expand and grow, because this is, yeah, the next part of your journey is actually being visible in your wisdom, in your teachings. And this call itself, I have literally, through every woman's sharing, and John, obviously for you too, is I've constantly been getting goosebumps of resonance and truth, and I feel these conversations are really important to have now in co-creation together, because I find that my angle of wisdom, when joined with like-minded people, creates this beautiful holistic picture and this way to access people's psyche in a way that can flourish it open through different perceptions. And I think the way in the past was there was a lot of leadership, like I'm not going to go too deeply into that, right, in the spiritual leadership, but it was very singular, very, I want to be the person, the Tony Robbins or the Deepak Chopra, and I'm not going to mention that man's name too much, but it was a very singular way of imparting wisdom. And I think now more than ever, especially in the lens of the winds of authenticity, is leadership, in my view, must come together in discussion, in co-creation, and stop creating a singular narrative that doesn't invoke variety and creativity. And I think these discussions, I just have flooding with goosebumps over and over again, because each way everyone has spoken has been like, I'm like, wow, I love how she just spoke into that. That's not how I could never have come up in that way of expressing that. But I'm receiving medicine from this whole discussion as we're sharing together. So yeah,
That's
it's been
beautiful.
an
Beautiful
incredible.
share. And I totally agree
Mm,
with that, the collective. And this
mm,
is the 44th book in the series. So over 450 leaders from around the world. And everyone's a leader, right? If you're, stay-at-home mum with 3 children, or you're a hairdresser, there's leadership roles. And I feel like that's like claiming our sovereignty. And I know that,
Mm,
obviously Jill's got a lot to talk into that, and Kat as well.
mm.
Kat, you basically, that's what the paradigm that you live into, right?
The one
Jill
that
was, Fiona was saying about, stepping up, expressing yourself, but also not as a singular, but as a collective. And I feel that the environment that you've created is like a collective consciousness. I can't remember what you called it, like a wolf layer, or a wolf
I owned a
pack?
wolf. I owned a wolf,
Oh,
and
a
I
wolf. Okay.
yeah, I owned a wolf, and or I should say we coexisted together. He was a gift from a gentleman that I was dating at the time, and he traveled with me when I decided, after my children were raised, to go decompress under a tree in the forest. And I went to the Siskiyou Mountains and took my wolf, which I highly suggest if you're going to go live in the forest for a couple of years.
Wow.
And yeah, so my inn is named after him, Wild Wolf Inn, and it really resonates to my heart. But in a lot of ways, we are all like that energy of our wildness, our instincts, our intuition. What we are pack-like. We're not isolated islands. And at sometimes we do one thing, and at another time we do another level of pack-related interactions. Um, if you're a parent and each one of your children are individuals to you, which they were to me, it's important for me to recognize that uh, they're a completely sovereign individual from the time that they're born. They're going to lean on me to be able to reflect back to them, if that's not too deep to say it that way. But even as a child, we move into adulthood and we do the same reflection. And truthfully, and I have been accused of having utopian mind, but it's the way that I experience life is, if everyone in general had this sense of self, this clarity of self, and was driving, as Jojo was saying, driving your own bus, but doing it in a way that is sovereign, which allows you and everyone around you to hold these different positions. So you're letting in all the information that you possibly can to flow through you, and that becomes your foundation for making choice. Now everyone's a leader because you're picking up everything from everyone around you. So it becomes very flowy, but you're not losing yourself in the flow. I can speak to it in the moment when someone is having a question about that, because it becomes very apparent, whether it's with children, And you get this dynamic, this push and pull dynamic that Freud talked about and Jung talked about. But in reality, you get this push and pull, and it's just an imbalance that if you both stand back and find that flow of allowing, there's moments that you get to sing and a moment that other people sing, and pretty soon it's a chorus of a cacophony of music occurring. And I know we have all had that experience where it just flows. Now expand that into all of the chaos and nonsense that's happening in the world, which, by the way, nonsense, no sensory information occurring. Can we all agree on that? So yeah, it's just bring up the senses, allow them to come through. You know, we'll all get there. We're a work in progress.
Yeah, this has been such a powerful discussion and amazing reminders, and you each bring so much to the table, and it just reminds me that it really is the age of the divine feminine, and when you can step into that truth and power and respect your own sovereignty, it's a beautiful thing, and really appreciate your trust with your stories and chapters. I don't take that lightly, and it's been a wonderful responsibility, and it's been definitely a push and pull with the birthing of this book, and a lot of contractions, and I just love how it was just born at divine timing. I feel a few of you have mentioned that now, and Jojo, you mentioned a lot about feeling like you were shut down as a child, your natural gifts and things like that,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
broke free from that. Did that
Yeah.
ultimately help you claim your sovereignty later on and who you
Yes.
are in your truth?
Yes, absolutely. And but first I really got off my path, and so I really resonate with you. And that made me think about how we have this idea that comes from society that if we achieve, then we have fulfillment and we can be grateful and we can look back at our success and feel fulfillment. But really it's the other way around. We need the gratitude and the fulfillment and the authenticity to create success. It flows from that place. And I think that you and me did it the hard way. Working in corporate, we had to also shut down, to a sense. To be successful in corporate, you have to kind of lose yourself and go and work in this environment that's very not authentic. And back then for me it was very rigid, and hierarchical, whereas now, with this authenticity that we have, our leadership is much more organic and compassionate, and it builds resilience for people. And I think that, yeah, that we can really be the eye in the storm, and that for this time we really need authenticity. But yes, I did shut down. I did. And it was that shutdown, that disconnect, that made me yearn for authentic connection. It really made me yearn for that. And like I wrote in the book, I had a friend who was very natural at this. He was very connected. I saw him like Spider-Man from a young age. He had this like this magical thing where he'd reach out and he had this web and there were all these people in it, and I embraced him, and I was like, well, how do you do that? Like, I was the outsider looking in, and he became my best friend. And I learned a lot from him. I watched his calm and his integrity, and he was the calm in the storm. And to have all this awareness at such a young age. So he was a mentor at childhood, but I had no idea how to get there. But it planted a seed in me of like, there's another way to be in your own center. And then instead of reacting, you can respond from a very authentic place and not lose yourself. And I thought that was like, wow, because I didn't see that anywhere around me. But for me to reclaim that it was really an answer to longing. I wanted to reclaim my intuition. To reclaim my intuition, I had to come back into my body and fully come back to and create more aliveness. And it's interesting now as I look at pictures of me when I was much younger, and I was so pale because there wasn't much aliveness. So I can now clearly see when I meet people, work with someone, if they have shut down or they really have got great energy flow in their systems, but the shutdown it's very difficult to get out of that. And I needed help, and you probably needed found a person, a good therapist that could really help you bring back that aliveness and passion and connection. And but it's a beautiful process, but it takes a lot of commitment, because if you disconnect, it's great because you don't feel the pain. So it's great. So that when you are going to connect, it comes with a huge amount of gifts. But first, you're going to feel that pain.
Yeah, and that's the gift. The gift is inside that pain. Whereas I was
Exactly.
resisting it before and numbing it before, but if you go inside that pain, allow
Yeah.
yourself to feel it, as
Yeah.
Fiona and Kat were saying, and Jill was alluding to as well, and then that's the gifts on the other side of that. You're able to calibrate the experience and see that actually was for you, and there's actually a diamond inside that actually is
Yeah.
not that darkness that I was so afraid to explore and build a brick wall around it. That's where the gift is. That's the diamond in the rough. And that's where your talents, your mission, your purpose, whatever that may be. And I love that, you've been honored with the gift of motherhood. And, it's just incredible. I'm in awe of that process. And we did another panel interview previously, and Diane spoke into that about birthing twins. And I know Fiona knows Diane Perotti, and she has two twin boys, and she wanted to have the birthing process a certain way, and having to really speak up that this is my sovereign right and this is my wish, and just doing whatever it took, and being supported by her hubby just in the background, is that groundedness. And yeah, I feel that that's kind of what you went through in your journey as well. And maybe not having that masculine so much, but just that mothering of yourself and
Yeah.
giving that love is really cool. And
Absolutely. And Kat, when you said we're pack animals, I completely agree with that. And that makes it also difficult because you want to belong. And we have got blind loyalties, and we're just concerned that if we change, our relationships will change. And they do. But often they change in really beautiful ways. And sometimes we walk away from a relationship. But I think that that's something that can really hold people back, because they think, if I change now, are people still going to love me? It's a really big thing. And then that goes right back to childhood, when we were little and we needed our parents to love us because they were keeping us safe, they were feeding us. And that's where that inner child work really comes in. But because it's so true, we all need each other. And it's
100%,
when we
100%. I love how
yeah.
you were speaking about that. Sorry, Jojo. I just we'll just be a little bit mindful of time. And I noticed that Jill hasn't spoken for a little bit, and I feel it's such a juicy topic that you're talking about right there of mothering yourself. And I know Jill has gone through that process. And Jill, did you want to speak into that as well? Dovetail what Jojo was talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on the mark, Jojo. And yeah, it's interesting for me to listen to that theme, that it seems to be just a collective common recognizing that I think so many of us are going through. And yeah, I just think we're all being called collectively right now to face that we didn't necessarily get what we needed, without blaming our parents or it becoming too complicated or, in a loop. And I'm listening to all of you, and I can see in so many other people that I know that I just, yeah, I'm grateful that we're all being lights for one another. And I hope these conversations and, this writing, this co-creation, this speaking our truth is contagious. And I see that, as each of us do it, it's like a ripple, showing others that it's possible even when it's scary. And and difficult. I mean, yeah, I'm just inspired by all of you and my own courage, to be honest, about speaking my truth in this story. That if you read, I think that's the thing is when we do read each other's stories, is we see we're not that different, and often there are these themes of pain, of, like Fiona, you were saying, our love attachments and how those things develop, or how our trust gets broken, or, our hearts get broken on the path, not to blame anybody, but to really recognize we are all holding these pains and these dysfunctions. And again, like, this topic can become so big and so deep because I think it does go back generations. And if we look, and then God speaking today of, what's happening with all these wars that our ancestors have been through, and displacement and cutting ourselves off from, this other thing that I think we all know is more true, that connection to each other, or love, or community. And I think, that's part of what we're recognizing on this path, just how far off track we've gotten, and yeah, I just commend all of you and anybody who's doing the work, because I think that is, we are helping to, one of my favorite sayings, walk each other home. And I think that's what we're doing. And I think it is essential. And on the topic of this bigger thing that nobody really wants to get into, like the world, because it's just so freaking big what's happening. But I feel like what we're all talking about, this inner work, or this recognizing our pain, is actually will be the answer to fostering or contributing to, global peace. This, if we can do it inside. And again, yeah, if anybody's listening, knowing that it is going to be painful or difficult, I think a few of you have said really important things, like community and finding help, and, acknowledging the shame or the vulnerability, but knowing that it does liberate us. And it's just like a tiny moment in that, from recognizing you want more love or peace or harmony or truth or joy in your life, to seeing like, oh, fruitcake, that's going to be difficult, and to not get stuck there and find some help or a bridge to help you get to the other side, because it is beautiful. And I think you're all proof of that as I hear you speak. And again, I've read a few of your chapters, but I can't wait to read all of them.
Well, reading your chapter, Jill, I really appreciated your sense of your relationship with yourself, enough that you knew when different seasons in your life had run its course, and it was time to make a change, even though if that shift, that change, created like so much, I guess, turmoil within yourself, of like the fear of the unknown. You just knew, like you knew that that was the right step to take, and you did it. And I feel that that's one of the powerful takeaways of your chapter. So I just wanted to mention that as well, just in case. Um, yeah, you'd forgotten, because that was one thing I was like, wow, you just knew when it was time to make that shift and change. And especially with everything that was happening during that time, with the global shutdowns and things like that. And you just trusted that authenticity within yourself, heart-left wisdom, or whatever you want to call it, was, yeah, really inspiring. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'll tell you, that near-death experience was proof enough for me that, yeah, we just shouldn't wait, right?
You're right. Right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, 100%. And yeah, you don't need a near-death experience to be able to trust that wisdom within. And yeah, it's just so beautiful that you tapped into that so regularly. And we've had Alex Dumas, he's shouting out, Jilly. We've had Phil Barlow, he's just thinking, hello, everyone. It's a great topic of conversation. Also, Yaneki, she's just loves the topic, and she's written a whole thing that we can, about the illusion, that you can go back and read later on if you'd like. But yeah, we're just over an hour, so maybe if we'd just like to, yeah, just take a moment just to, what's your lasting impression that you'd like to leave with the viewer, or what's close on your heart, or if there's something that you've wanted to, been dying to say but haven't had the opportunity. maybe Fiona, if you'd like to share and just speak into what feels alive.
Yeah, for sure. Before I do, I just want to comment on Jill saying the word fruitcake.
Yeah, I almost
It took a
burst out
lot.
laughing. Oh
It
my
took a
God.
lot, Fiona.
It's like all of this laughter was inside. I'm like, I can't contain this. I need to speak to the fact you said the word fruitcake.
I'm glad I wasn't taking a sip of water. I would have just traded it out.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, that
You
was
were trying not to laugh at
gold.
yourself when you were saying it as well.
Oh, so
Who
funny.
doesn't like a really good fruitcake? My mum makes the most
Yeah.
amazing fruitcake.
Oh God, so good. Thank you, Jill. It was amazing.
There's
I
so much
love that,
synergy
Jill.
between you all as well. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Jill's doing retreats, Fiona's doing retreats, and
Yeah.
Kat's doing her style of retreats, and I know Jojo's doing a lot of exciting things with her tribe. So there's a lot of synergy and cross pollination. So I
Yeah.
hope you guys explore
Beautiful.
that as well and
Yeah.
share social media handles. And we did a
Yeah.
post. I'm not sure if anyone saw it, but I think there was maybe one or two that shared their social media handles. Maybe we'll just do that post again.
Yeah.
But sorry, Fee.
Beautiful. That's so good. So I actually wrote 2 points down that I wanted to just summarize for my passage. So the first one is more a question, and I know my passage isn't going to resonate with everyone, but it's going to resonate with the right people and what that opens up within their body and how they feel when they read it. But the question was that I wanted to share with people to reflect on through this passage is, when was the first time you loved before you knew how? And where have you been trying to recreate that feeling ever since? So I really wanted to speak into that, and then also end with, the girl who loved first is still inside you. And the question isn't whether she is. The question is whether you're still giving her heart to places that cannot hold it. Sorry, the question is whether you're still giving her heart to places that cannot hold it. This book is an invitation to stop, to come home, to remember that your love is sacred and it was never meant to be, and it was never meant to be earned. So I think
I love
that
that.
just sort of summarizes the whole experience, is basically stop trying to earn your love and know that you innately loved just by being who you really are.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Living, breathing human being, and that's just enough.
Mm,
I feel everyone struggles with that on some level.
mm, yeah. Yeah.
Can
And
I just say that I really love, Jill, when you said that, talked about the contagiousness, like, authenticity being contagious. That really resonates with me. And I really feel that there's a deep truth in that, because I think that, I feel that when we have this commitment to walk a path, it's an energy frequency that we ground that really is an invitation for others to do the same. And I also feel that, when people are looking for that, they connect um, with people on that level because they feel it, and it's almost like you have gone there before them, so your frequency helps them. It resonates in their field. That's something that they can actually feel as an invitation to do the same thing. And it's quite profound because it actually helps people to heal. Like, I really believe that, on the soul level, we all are created to heal and evolve. And this is our natural state, just like the state of the universe is expansion. And when people are authentic, it's something that has charisma, it's attractive to people, and they might not even know what it is and that they're looking for it, but it really helps others and gives them permission to do the same thing and embrace that in themselves. So I was really glad you brought that up, because I think that it's
beautiful.
more powerful than we realize.
Yeah, 100%. And Yannick is speaking to that as well, Jojo and Jill, and she's saying, I see authenticity as our pure soul expression of the truth of who we are, with a big smiley face. So there you go. Touching people already. It's beautiful. And Kat, did you want to speak into that, or did you have something that is really alive for you?
Yes. That to me feels like presence. And, when we use these terms, love, presence, we can overuse them. So, really, what it is in the moment, I'm not so concerned about thinking about what other people are experiencing. I'm truly experiencing my presence. And so let's not call it that. Let's just call it a moment. And I try and keep my moments like a whiteboard that are clear. And the whiteboard is my own personal knowledge of self, the frequency that Jojo was talking about, that thing that gives other people permission to be their own whiteboard. And then we paint that moment together. Because truth is, I'm here, a person comes into my field, we interact, and I take a portion of what I experienced from them away, and they take a portion of me away. And 70% of the conversation occurs after we're separated. It's the 30% that occurs while we're together that gives us foundation, and then we exchange that information, but we grow in that 70% of being away from one another. It's when we get this codependent, or that we think that we have to be connected all the time in relationship, that confounds the word love. We end up, say somebody has an inconsistency that makes them a little out of balance. We come in and we want to meet them where they are. Well, we have to overcompensate. We end up out of balance, or we end up trying to keep them from falling, and we get squished in their fall. And all of these convoluted situations occur. But if you stay here in self, in my own personal whiteboard, in the moment, in the presence, which take a breath. It's like a walking meditation. You take in the information, you be as present as you can, and you show up in each moment, like this moment we're having with one another, with the people that are listening. We're all showing up in this moment. We move forward from this moment. We take away what we would like to have, and we terminate on that. And then hopefully we come together again. But there is no guarantee for the next moment. So you have to really allow the tendrils of, I'm not going to hold on to anything. I'm going to hold on to that which I am. And I'm going to move forward. And if that isn't too esoteric for you, we're friends. We got it. But it is truly the way that I live, and I hope to live my life, because it's the truth that I found for me. It's what feeds me who I am back to myself, because I arrive as I am in the moment. And I'm always going to have open ears, eyes, and senses for that which is around me. And oftentimes I am absolutely known in my group of people for picking up a phone call just as someone is texting me, or getting up and going knocking on a door, or that's why I've got a door open policy, 2 o'clock in the morning. I never have my phone on, and yet people will call me and I will have picked up my phone. And that's the sensory information. And again, if that's not too esoteric, we're friends. I am trying to just be in the field. So that's it.
Wow, I mean, what a journey that you've been on, and it's awesome that you can just collaborate, that you can calibrate that journey into the wisdom that you're living and breathing today. And I really love that interpretation of presence, and that really speaks to me and my part of the journey right now. And so, yeah, I really appreciate you stepping up and sharing that. That's really cool. The open door policy. Not so sure about the 2 o'clock knocks on the door, but we all create our own reality that we're okay living in. So that's cool with you. That's cool. And Jojo or Jill, I don't know which one wants to speak first, but yeah, maybe you, Jojo, if you'd like to.
I really love that, Kat.
Yeah.
That moved me.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it's all about. It's just being here for it, whatever it is. And I think you've mastered that, because when you speak to that, it really resonates with me. So that's something that I take away from this beautiful conversation. And I've just so enjoyed this, each and every one of you. I think you're amazing. And John, I think that you really set the tone with your open heart and integrity and vulnerability. I think we could not have, done this without having you hold this energy for all of us and help us through this labor. So you talk of the divine feminine, but we have the divine masculine holding space for us. So I want to really honor you for that and thank you for that contribution.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. I think, yeah, appreciate the acknowledgement. And also, I just appreciate your courage, Jojo. I mean, you're just so unstoppable and wildly you. And yeah, you just seem to enjoy the roller coaster ride and all that it has to offer. And but all come back to that grounded sense of self. I
Yeah.
know you've had a lot of different things happening, and especially with your mum. And you know, my heart goes out to you with that relationship and how it's birthed into a different dynamic, and that's really inspiring to
Yeah.
hear. So yeah, just you really are an inspiration for so many, and how you're able to hold space even when you have so much tumultuous things happening in your reality. And yeah, I really respect that. So thank you. And Jill, if you'd like to, yeah, wrap us up, take us home.
Oh, oof, wow. Well, yeah, so many things resonated with me. And Fiona, when you were talking about the shivers, I thought, like, yeah, I was getting them too so much. And thought to mention maybe also for people, you know, as a reminder that when we feel those, that those kinds of things are such a good guide, you know, to tune us into something I think that's bigger. And again, I just want to reflect back to that's what I'm feeling here and collectively in this moment in time where we are, that we are feeling this resonance to become more of who we are. And that if anybody's reading these chapters or watching this interview, that I think what I'm really feeling and hearing from all of you is that, you know, we are all the same and we're all terrified and we're all flailing and none of us know what we're doing, but to stand into that. And I also love that moment that came up where it feels like there's this shift that as we all participate in speaking our truth and facing our fears, that we are becoming the leaders instead of repeating this pattern of giving away our power to this energy or momentum that is so clearly not working for the collective. So and I would also repeat what Jojo said to you, John, about just, yeah, creating these opportunities and if anybody's listening and getting their own opportunities to say yes, even though it's terrifying. And finally, I'd like to just say the funniest thing for me about all of this was that, Fiona, because if you knew me and I was being really authentic, fruitcake would never go. So the irony of that is just funny as fuck. And thank you all for sticking with us. What a great conversation. And I just feel inspired and grateful, John. Thank you. And to all of you.
So awesome. And yeah, a great way to wrap up. Thank you, Jill, for bringing us home. And yeah, our book is it's 99 cents on Amazon for the ebook. All proceeds go to Jules Children's Home, which is an amazing orphanage. There's the book. There's the book there. In North Valley, you can buy the paperback for $15.50. Also, the Audible in the United States is available for $9.99, and we've already received some amazing reviews. If you already read the book and it's touched you in some way, please share. We'd love to hear back from you. And if there was an author in the book that really resonated with you, they don't bite, please reach out to them and touch base and say hi and let them know personally that their chapter impacted you. I know it's such an amazing gift to be able to give, but then also to be able to receive back. And it's a beautiful dynamic to be part of. And so if it's touched you in some way, then please reach out and give back what you receive. Would love to hear from you. Awesome. Oh, I appreciate this dynamic. Thank you so much.
Thank
Peace,
you,
love, and mum
everybody.
beans. Love that. Awesome. Thank you.